Okay, today I want to talk about IM nail, the photoorganic fracture, and some history of this fracture management. So this is a gamma nail. Maybe it is the most famous IM nail for the trochanteric fracture in the world. So I will explain these devices. Previously, I prefer to use this one, but then I gradually moved to another fixation devices. Well, this is very surprising, innovating. Before introduction of the gamma nail, I used, for example, DHS or ender nail. At that time, maybe 1990s in Japan, CHS and ender nail is very famous and popular. Maybe gamma nail introduced the end of 19th. The main surgeon surprised and moved to the gamma nail. But in fact, this is uh, some modification of innovation of gamma nail. This is the first page of the gamma nail. The gamma nail is like this, very strong valgus angle, maybe approximately 6 degrees, more than 6 degrees, and bending point is very low because this gamma nail is maybe is developed in the German. In German, many people have a very big frame. So for these very big Western people, this shape and angle is proper. But it is the original design is very the design has a very thin hip screw. So then move to the thicker, the big diameter, and a little bit mild valgus angle to modify. Maybe this is the most popular version of the gamma nail, the original gamma nail. Maybe the first three we use this one. So what is the innovation of the gamma nail? So gamma nail is have the both benefit advantage of the stability of the IM nail and the flexibility or sliding mechanism of the hip screw, something like the CHS. So, and in addition to how to control the hip screw, the rotation, allowing the sliding is very difficult. But the CHS very DHS or the CHS is very simple to control because maybe shape of the screw is not cylinder. Something like the both side is the side is flat and it is inserted in the tube or the barrel of the side plate. But this one basically cannot control, cannot insert this type of non-cylindrical shape because it is like this, how can I say, it's like a screw and a cylinder screw. So it must be inserted with rotating. So it is difficult, but this is, sorry, what is, this one. This is the innovation of control the sliding and the rotation of the hip screw. It is a very, very beautiful mechanism. This hip screw has a thin dip and sulcus on the screw, and set screw inside this sulcus, but never touch to the screw. So then, this mechanism can control the rotation of the hip screw, but allow the sliding of hip screw. So it is very, very surprising mechanism. But in this mechanism, the sliding length is limited. The length of this sulcus, this one sulcus. So it is depend of the length of the sulcus. So in fact, there is only the sulcus here. So it is sometimes the sliding is limited until this touch to here. Otherwise, without this mechanism, this screw can, how can I say, when I can pull back, so back out fully, and then fully come out this one. So to prevent this complete separation of the hip and the nail, this length of sulcus should be limited. Going to sometimes this main hip screw going to the femoral head, so sometimes penetrate the femoral head and the pelvis. So this stop mechanism needs here, both here and here. This is prevent the back out. It prevent the penetration of the head. This is the very famous. But as I said, but I'm worried about this mechanism because in this mechanism, set screw, I screw the set screw fully and turn the half round of the screw pitch. So then once I tightly the screw or this screw and then go back. I'm afraid sometimes to go back, to turn back of the set screw. Sometimes that can cause the rotation of the hip screw. So it is a little bit difficult to control. So the current IM nail system have these two types of set screw. The one screw is the static set screw. That means this set screw can fix this the hip screw securely and never move. So maybe this is for the used for the subtrochanteric fracture. So subtrochanteric fracture, we don't need a sliding mechanism. But another set screw is the length is a little bit shorter than the previous one. Even fully screw of the tighten of the screw, that there is some space between the hip screw and the tip of this set screw that can allow the sliding, but in the same time that can prevent the rotation. But in the gamma nail is only the one set screw, and for the static, the fully tight the screw, and for the sliding, allowing the sliding, a little bit go back. But I don't like this feeling, so I want to prepare the two types of set screw. And another problem is this shape of nail. Originally, this angle, Vargas angle, was 6 degrees. As I said, this bending point was too distal. So sometimes this bending point is completely intermediary diaphysis. So the patient, if the patient has a very small or very narrow middle canal, so during the inserting the femoral shaft fracture, it occurred very frequently in the initial version of gamma nail. So maybe I remember the initial report from the US. The fracture rate was approximately 10%. This is a serious complication. So original paper did not recommend to use this nail for the routine use for the or trochanteric fracture. But after that, the bending is getting milder and getting milder. Maybe this is a 5 degrees, and the last one is maybe the 4 degrees. But at the time, the introduction in Japan is this version or this version, maybe this version is the first version. It is too big. So the part three, we select the patient. So if the patient has a very big wide space to insert this one, I can use this one. And in the same time, it is very important to do not hit the arm nail uh, during the insertion. So using the hand and gradually insert the nail is necessary. Otherwise, so femoral shaft fracture can occur. But basically, this shape is for the very big Western peoples. For the Western people, so for the many Asian people, it is too big. So this shape and the length is modified for the Asian people. Maybe the original length was around 200 millimeter, but it is reduced to the 170 millimeter for the Asian version. Maybe this is the manufactured and designed by the Hong Kong doctor, maybe Dr. Liu, or the name Asia AP nail, Gamma AP nail, Gamma Asia Pacific nail. Uh, just after to my introduction of start to use the Gamma nail, after several years, the Gamma AP nail has come into Japan and is really convenient. But it is still too big for the Japanese patient because this length from the tip of nail and laryngeal to penetrate point of the nail hip screw is too big. So sometimes after the operation, uh, the protrusion of this part is evident, and sometimes it can cause the pain or sometimes cause the diabetes. So reduce this length approximately 1 centimeter. After that, the fitting is really good. This is the start of use of the short arm nail for the trochanteric fracture in Japan. After that, so many similar devices introduced to resolve the residual problem. So maybe one problem is rotation. Of course, this mechanism, sliding mechanism, set screw and the hip screw mechanism can allow the sliding and prevent the rotation of the hip screw. This mechanism only can prevent the rotation between the nail and hip screw, but only the one screw cannot to sufficiently control the rotation of a femoral head. In other words, so only the one screw cannot control the relationship, rotational relationship between femoral head and the hip screw. So how to control, prevent the rotation of a femoral head against the nail, hip screw. So a solution of the gamma nail is U-lag screw. So after the insertion of the gamma nail, on the gamma nail, the surface of the gamma nail, there is a thin slot, thin slit, uh, into the slit. That this one, this uh, we call the U-lag, U-braid is inserted, and this lag screw then insert the blade like this. After that, this screw can some wing or a braid that can sufficiently control the rotation of the femoral head. So it acts very well. But even this one, it is so complex mechanism. But anyway, so many device is consider about the how to control the rotation because the rotation is very serious problem, difficult to control. So many cut out is is cause the following the rotation of the femoral head. So if the femoral head is controlled in terms of rotation, so some cutout can be prevented. So this for the gamma nail is the insertion of the U-lag is the good the solution to control. Another focus point we should focus on is the this one interlocking. So because gamma nail is called gamma locking nail, so that this has a locking nail. This is a cortical screw. This one can prevent the subsidence and the rotation of the femoral head, the nail. But unfortunately, in the initial phase of introduction of the gamma nail, the many fracture around this screw hole occurred so frequently. This is another cause of the femoral shaft fracture after gamma nail. The one is heavy insertion of the nail itself. Another one is the screwing. Because this is the one pitfall to use the locking screw. Because this locking screw is not a locking blade. So we need to stop just after the screw head touch to the lateral cortex of the femur. But for the orthopedic surgeon, so it is tend to fix very strongly to to just like the use the screw for the plating. For the plating, we need to twist the screw tightly to pick the plate and the bone. It is very effective for the plate fixation because surface of the plate is very strong. So sugar had never damaged the cortex. But this one, regarding this one, if we twist the screw very strongly this screw head can migrate into the lateral cortex that can cause the fracture. So I always say to my resident and junior, so I never twist too tightly, never fix too tight for this one, this screw. Otherwise, you can cause the fracture. So this is another one. And two screw is, I think, too much. We don't need the two screws. Only one screw is sufficient. So make the two holes that can cause, that can increase the risk of fracture or lateral. So the current version is only has only one screw. This one, only this one, and even this one is only very circle, very circular. So it can act as only the static screw. But modern iron nail, most of modern iron nail has the oval nail. If the screw is inserted in the upper end of this slot screw hole, this screw can act as a static nail that can prevent the migration. And if the screw is inserted in the lower part of this slot, uh, uh, the screw hole, this screw can act the dynamic screw. So it can allow the migration of this nail, but that can prevent the rotation of nail. So it is selectable. So it can selecting the position of the screw hole for the this locking screw. So it is selectable. Some surgeons prefer to routine use to the dynamic hole. Sometimes some doctors prefer to use the static hole. But I have known the true answer. But basically, for the subtrochanteric fracture, I prefer to use the dynamic hole because if we use this one to the static for the subtrochanteric fracture, that can no compression can be acted on the fracture side. So that can cause the non-union and subsequent breakage of nail. So after subtrochanteric fracture, breakage of the hardware is very frequent. It is still a serious problem. Unlike the subtrochanteric fracture, and thanks to the sliding mechanism of the lag screw, the non-union is very, very rare in the trochanteric fracture. But subtrochanteric fracture, well, all device does not have the efficient compression mechanism between the two bone fragments. But furthermore, the most subtrochanteric fracture is a comminuted fracture, very, very complex fracture. Even if the nail has the effective mechanism to the sliding, but it can cause the severe shortening of legs. So maintain the leg length is mandatory for the subtrochanteric fracture. At the same time, that can cause, that can increase the risk of non-union. So it is a very, very serious problem. So anyway, this screw hole is also innovated, developed. So I can see this is gamma 3, the newest type of gamma nail. And that gamma nail has the oval slot. So we can select the dynamic or dynamic mode on the static mode, and depend on the position of the insertion of the locking nail. And interestingly, it's very interesting. So originally, the gamma nail is shaped and length is like this. But it is too big for the Asian people. So then downsize and reduce the bulgus angle for the Asian people. But currently, this is the standard gamma nail shape all over the world. So, or maybe Asian design should be the universal. So, most of modern IM nail have the similar length and lateral bulgus angle, like the gamma AP nail. It is very interesting. So, in summary, the modern IM nail is the length should be around 160 to the 180 in length. And there is some mechanism to control the rotation of the femoral head, not only the control of the lag screw, but also the control of femoral head around the screw. And it is also has the sliding mechanism, and in the same time, it can prevent the rotation. So it is some idea to achieve this one. Or maybe tomorrow I will talk about it. And this is a screw hole. The originally, or maybe this is some modification of the IM nail for the femoral shaft fracture. Well, this is a gradually reduced for the special use for the trochanteric fracture. Or maybe it is basically similar to the leg construction nail. So from normally I am nail for the locking screw for the proximal one is from the lateral upper lateral to the lower medial. But this is the antegrade locking screw, but retrograde screw is like this. So maybe the maybe designer imagine to reduce the length of retrograde nail and bigger uh, to enhance the retrograde screw. Maybe so that therefore this one have the two screw hole and over the circle hole. But then the concept is changed to this is a specialized device. So it is reduce the size and bending angle, and at the same time, to it can make the overhaul to control the dynamization of the screw. Okay, okay, I'm sorry. So today only the gamma nail. So because maybe the initial introduction of the gamma nail was around 1905 or 96. After that, after the 10 years, I focused on to use the gamma nail and studied a lot of about gamma nail, how to prevent, how to reduce the fracture, how to insert the lag screw and the nail the accurately, and how to control the femoral head. Then I couldn't find the good answer, so I moved to the other devices that have the braid of the, for the fixed femoral head. Anyway, tomorrow I will talk about. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening to me.